Gittin, olive base or base olive.
Hold on. Let's start with Dalet Zion.
Okay, olive oil. Okay. One who divorces his wife because of a bad reputation may not take her back because of a neder. He may not take her back. Rabbi Huda says because of any neder which was known to the public, he may not take her back. But if because of a neder not known to the public, he may take her back. Rameya says if he divorced her because of any neder which requires the inquiry of a sage, he may not take her back. But if because of a neder which not require the inquiry of a sage, he may take her back. Rabbi Elazar says they prohibited this only because of the other. Said Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda, it occurred in Sidon that one said to his wife, Kohenam, if I do not divorce you, and he divorced her, and the sages allowed him to take her back for the sake of the general good.
Okay, just to pause for a second. I think it's worth, since we didn't learn this together yesterday. It's an important point over here to note that when what they're saying is that under these certain circumstances, um, they said to the husband, they made a gezerah basically on the husband that said you must when they're in the divorce court and like handing over the get, they say to the husband, just be aware that this get that you're giving now because of this reason, because you have a chashash that because there's been a rumor about your wife being unfaithful. Right? No evidence, just because of this. If you divorce her because of this, there's no going back. You are never allowed to retract the get or take her again. Okay. And why did they do this? Because if now she goes and remarries and her name gets cleared up and it turns out that it was all a malicious lie and whatever, and now he comes and has charata and says, "Oh, if I'd known that it wasn't true, I would never have divorced her." Now you're creating a situation where he's undoing his get lemafreya, and now she's living with another man. So they wanted to absolutely sever the ties between him and his wife, so that he can never even have a thought of remarrying her once this is done, because otherwise it gets into very sticky territory. That's basically the idea here. So without diving too deep into it, but let's carry on with the Chazara.
If one divorces his wife because she is an aloneness, Rabbi Huda says he may not take her.
She may not take it back, right? Which is
Right.
exactly and it'll be the same reason here. Mm.
But the comments say he may take her back. If she was married to another and had children from him and she demands her ketubah, Rabbi Huda says he says to her, your silence is better for you than your speech.
Right. So this one again, Ilonis means she's infertile. So he says, I'm divorcing her, she's infertile. And then she goes and marries somebody and has a baby. And now he's gonna and now the Ilonis comes and says, excuse me, if she's divorced because of Ilonis, she loses her kasubah because it was under false pretenses. But now she comes and says, excuse me, I'm clearly not an Ilonis. I want those 200 zuz from my first husband. And the Chachamim say, don't go into that territory because what's going to happen? He's going to say, oh, if I'd known that she wasn't an Ilonis, I would never have divorced her. So, and then you're in even worse trouble. So just accept the loss, live with your new husband, admire Hashem, and don't make any waves with your first husband because that's going to make things really sticky.
Okay. If one sells himself and his children to a Gentile, he is not to be redeemed. But the children are to be redeemed after the death of their father. One who sells his field to a Gentile must buy and bring first fruits from it for the sake of the general good. Okay.
Okay, right. Perik Hey. Hanizakin. Okay, so these are more takanas that were made for the sake of the general good. Okay, Hanizakin, when somebody is damaged, shamin lahem ba'idis. So if somebody takes somebody else to based in and they find in their favor and they say, okay, the mazik has to pay you X amount of money. If he doesn't have the money, they're allowed to seize his property, and not only his property, but his best property. Okay. And now you just to be clear, why is it what makes property better or worse? If you've got like farmland, if you've got high quality farmland, obviously it's a smaller area. If you've got low quality farmland, it's a much bigger area to make up the same price. So why would you prefer if it's the same price? What's the difference? Why? But if you've got basically if you've got a smaller area of high quality farmland, it's less effort to farm it.
Uh,
So that's really the big difference between them. So at any rate, it's an advantage to the Nizak to be paid out from the high quality farmland. Okay, um, and that's something that comes from the Torah. Okay, Baal Chov b'Beinonis. Now, a creditor only gets paid out from medium quality land. He doesn't get to seize the high quality land. Now, actually, Min Torah, there's nothing that entitles a Baal Chov to even the medium quality if the debtor cannot pay from in cash, then he could just give him from his worst quality land according to the Torah. But Chazal said we don't want people to refuse to lend each other money because he's going to think, well, I don't want rubbish quality land. So they added on for the general good to say that a creditor can even seize medium quality land.
yeah.
Okay, so to create that incentive that you can still lend money to people and you know that you've got a good security. Ksubas isha baziboris. However, um, a woman's ksuba is only secured by the lowest quality land. Okay, now a woman with a ksuba is in any case a creditor, right? She's just another case of creditor. So why did they not change the halacha for a woman because a woman's not going to get refused to get married just because her ksuba is secured by lower quality land. So they just didn't add that extra measure of security for her. They left her at the Torah level. Rabbi Meir disagrees, however. He says, Af kesubas isha b'beinonis. He says, no, it's a general category. She is a creditor like anyone else, and she can claim from beinonis. Okay, that is not the halacha. It follows the chachamim. Okay, base. Ein nifrain min nechasim meshubadim b'makom sheyesh nechasim b'nei chorin. Now, one of the things that can happen is if a let's say a debtor has land, which and then he takes the land and he sells it to a third party, and now he defaults on his loan, and the creditor says, where's the land? And he says, well, I sold it. So the creditor can go and gazump the person who bought it and said, "I'm sorry, that's my land. You sorted out with the person that you bought it from, but that's my land. He had no right to sell it to you because it was already secured." However, you can only do that if the debtor has no other land that you can grab it from, because you don't want to start messing up the market and grabbing things that people have bought when there's land that he owns elsewhere. Even if now remember the creditor's got the right to the medium quality. He sold the medium quality, but he's got low quality land. So here we're saying, sorry, we know that you generally have the right to medium quality land, but we're not going to go and uproot a sale just because you want the medium quality land. You have to claim it from the low quality land so as not to uproot the sale, because we want the marketplace to be a safe place for people to do business. And we really, really don't like going and avoiding sales retroactively. אפילו הן זיבורס. ואין נפרען מנכסי יסומם אלא מן הזיבורס. Also, the same thing applies to an estate. So if the father had borrowed money, then all the time that the father is alive, then the creditor is entitled to claim from the medium quality. But if he dies now, and now the creditor's got a claim on the estate, he has to claim from the low quality land now, because this is something that Chazal took pity on the orphans to say we're going to try and give them some extra protection. And by the way, this doesn't only apply to underage orphans. Even if the orphans are adults with their own families and children, for this purpose they're considered orphans, and they only have to pay from the low quality land. This is again returning back to the
Right.
Torah level, it was only a takana of Chazal that said that okay, a creditor can claim from the medium quality because we don't want people to refuse to lend, and people aren't going to refuse to lend on the off chance that the debtor is going to die, and now they're going to be left with claiming from the estate. That's too much of an edge case to enforce that takana. Okay, Mishnah Gimel. Ein motziin la'achilas peiros v'lishvach karkaos. Um, you ein motziin la'achilas peiros v'lishvach karkas v'lamazon ha'isha v'abanos nechasim meshubadim mipnei tikkun ha'olam. So when there is a um, what's the situation? Okay. So our situation is where a person came and stole a field. How do you stole the field? By force. He came and occupied it and pushed the original owner off in a lawless way. And then he came and sold it to somebody else who just didn't know who the property belonged to. Said, "Yeah, I'll sell you this property, fine." So now you've got a buyer who's sitting on the property. Um, and now, the original owner comes and wants to claim his property back. Um, just a sec. Burn example. Okay, so now the person who was stolen comes with a court order and says, "I want to take my field back." Okay, now the third party has now invested in the field. So he wants his money back and says, Listen, I improved your field for you. I put in the irrigation and the trees have grown nicely and whatever. Um I want to get my investment back. Okay. Um the my parents Sorry, I'm actually I just need to reconsult my notes because something isn't looking right for me here. Um, okay, so we um, so this the first clause, eating of produce, refers to a case where someone had stolen a field, sold it to another person, and the buyer grew produce in it. The field was then discovered to have been stolen, and the owner took it back with its produce from the buyer. So the buyer can go back to the seller, i.e., the thief, and recover his losses, the field and the produce. Okay. Now the Mishnah teaches that although the buyer can take the thief's sold properties as payment for the value of the field, he can collect only the thief's available properties as payment for the produce. So he also, even the thief himself, so basically the owner came and grabbed the whole field back and said, "Don't even talk to me. This is my field." And now the buyer finds the thief and hauls him into Beis Din and says, "You tricked me. You said this was your field, and I just got kicked off. Now I want restitution." So the Beis Din says, "Okay, what else does this thief own?" So I say, "Okay, your properties are Meshubad. You have to pay back for all these things." But the thief himself sold his own properties to a third party. So now, can you reclaim those? And the Mishnah is telling us that no, you can only take you can only take the for the value of the field. They can seize his property. They can gazump the second deal, but for the produce, you can only take available properties. You can't gazump any deals. The second clause of the improvement of land also refers to stolen land that someone bought from the thief. If the buyer made improvements to the stolen field that increased its value and then the owner took the field back, the buyer can collect the value of the improvement from the thief, but also only from available properties and not from his sold properties. So he can't gazump anyone else's deals. The third clause, the mazonos, the food of the wife and daughters, refers to the support a man's wife and daughters can collect from his estate after his death. This too may be taken only from the available properties of the estate and not from the properties that were sold. All this is all this is mipnei tikkun haolam, because once again, Chazal wanted the marketplace to be a place where people were able to make deals without having to fear that there was something shady in the past that now I'm going to have my property taken away from me. Okay. מפני תיקון העולם. והמוצא מציע לא יישבע מפני תיקון העולם. And also, if somebody, another tikkun olam thing which is unrelated, is that you find a guy that does Hashavas Aveda. You find somebody's wallet and it's got his name in it. And he says, oh, okay, Reuven, I found your wallet. And Reuben says, thank you so much. And he opens the wallet and he says, there was 200 shekels in my wallet. Now there's only 100. And the guy says, yeah, that's what I found. I found 100 shekels in my wallet. So if you take a look at the situation, is that this is a case of a modeh b'miktsas. He admits part of the amount. So if Shimon, who found the wallet, had said no, there was no money in this wallet, then that's a complete denial, and he doesn't, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if like a modeh b'miktsas is Reuven it comes with a claim and says, I lent Shimon 200 shekels. And Shimon said, no, 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 but I only owe you 100. I already paid back 100. So the modeh b'miktsas is one of these psychological things where we say that a person wouldn't want to be so ungrateful as to completely deny a loan. So because he's admitting part of it, we're going to make him take a shavua that he's paid on that part. But so it's the same sort of case with this wallet. He found the wallet. He's saying that I found it with 100 shekels in it, and the owner says it's 200. So normally you'd be able to make him take a shvu on it. But we say no, we don't want to do this for people who are doing Hashavas Aveda, because then people are going to stop doing Hashavas Aveda, right? Because every time he does Hashavas Aveda and the guy says that actually there was more money in there originally, and now I'm going to have to take a shvu on this. What do I want for this mitzvah? So they said, forget it. If somebody's doing Hashavas Aveda, they never have to take a shavua on it. Okay, that's it. We will be restricted in I think how much we can do in Chazara, but let's go. Okay, base Aleph.
Base Aleph. Base Aleph in Gittin. Oh yeah, we're back. We're back. Base Aleph. Sorry. If one brought a get from overseas and said it was written in my presence, but not, it was signed in my presence, or it was signed in my presence, but not, it was written in my presence, or all of it was written in my presence, and half of it was signed in my presence, half of it was written in my presence, and all of it was signed in my presence, it is void. If one says it was written in my presence, and one said it was signed in my presence, it is void. If two say it was written in our presence, and one says it was signed in my presence, it is void. If Yehuda, however, validates it, if one says it was written in my presence, and two say it was signed in our presence, it is valid. If it was written by day and signed by, it was written by day and signed by day, or written by night and signed by night, or written by night and signed by day, it is valid. If it was written by day and signed by night, it's void. Reb Shimon, however, validates it. For Reb Shimon used to say all documents which were written by day and signed by night are void, except for Gittin. We write it with anything with ink, with orpiment, or with red pigment, or with gum, with ferrous sulfate, or anything which is lasting. We do not write it with liquids, not with fruit juice, nor with anything which is not lasting. We write upon it anything on the leaves of an olive tree, or on the horn of a cow, and he gives her the cow, and on the hand of the slave, or he gives her the slave. And Rav Yossi the Galilean says, we do not write it on a living creature nor on food. Okay.
All right, Nazir,
Right.
Vav.
What is the procedure for head shaving in a tumah? He would be sprinkled on the third and seventh days, shave his head on the seventh, and bring his sacrifices on the eighth. However, if he shaved on the eighth, he brings his sacrifices on the same day. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Reb Tarfon said to him, what is the difference between this one and a mitzvah? He said to him, this one's purification is dependent on his days, while Masorah's purification depends on his shaving, and he cannot bring a sacrifice unless the sun has set on him. What is the procedure for head shaving in Sahara? He would bring 3 additional animals, a sin offering, a burnt offering, and a peace offering. Slaughter the peace offering and shave upon it. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar says he did not shave his head except on the slaughter of the sin offering because the offering takes precedence on every occasion. However, if he shaved his head on any of the 3, he has discharged his obligation. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says if he has brought the 3 animals and did not specify the one fit for the sin offering is offered as a sin offering, and the one fit for the burnt offering is offered as a burnt offering, and the one for the peace offering is offered as a peace offering, he would take the hair from his head of the zeros and cast it under the pot. If he shaved his head in the provinces, he would cast it under the pot. In regard to what was said in regard to the head shaving in Tahara, but for the head shaving in Tuma, he did not cast his hair under the pot. Rameya says all Nazarim cast their hair under the pot, except for one who is Tame and shaved in the provinces.
Okay, here vamos.
Okay, Yudal and Aleph. If a deaf mute married a competent woman, or a competent man married a deaf mute woman, if he wishes, he may divorce her. If he wishes, he may retain her. Just as he marries by gesturing, so he may divorce her by gesturing. If a competent man married a competent woman and she became a deaf mute, if he wishes, he may divorce her, and if he wishes, he may retain her. If she became insane, he may not divorce her. If she became a deaf mute or insane, he can never divorce her. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, why is that a wife who became a deaf mute may be divorced, but a husband who became a deaf mute may not be divorced? They replied, a husband who divorces is not comparable to a wife who is divorced, because a wife may be divorced with or without her consent, while a husband cannot divorce except by his consent.